You're nothing but a Confederate, loving, crawfish-eating hillbilly who probably bought his law degree at a swap meet." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Hillary Clinton, her voice sharp and unrelenting, delivered the insult with the ease of someone who believed herself untouchable. Every syllable cut clean, honed by decades in the brutal arena of American politics. At the microphone, the former Secretary of State stood firm, phone raised high to livestream every second to her millions of followers. The hearing chamber, once meant for dull discussions on judicial nominations, had transformed into her stage. Reporters scribbled frantically, staffers whispered into earpieces, and even the gallery leaned forward. Realizing they weren't witnessing routine politics, they were watching a spectacle. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hillary continued, her tone dripping with condescension, "today I expose Senator John Kennedy for what he truly is, a fraud. His folksy act is nothing but a costume, a Hollywood prop meant to trick Americans into thinking he's one of them. He is not." A gasp rippled across the room. Her media team. Yes, she'd brought a full crew, complete with cameras and real-time editors. Captured every glare, every pause, every flash of her hand as she gestured toward Kennedy. Across from her sat Senator John N. Kennedy, a rumpled figure in a worn brown suit. His reading glasses slipped toward the end of his nose as he calmly doodled on a yellow legal pad. "Little crawfish," traced lazily as if her storm of words were nothing more than background noise. To an outsider, he looked every bit the country lawyer out of place in a high-stakes Washington battle. But his silence, his almost playful calm, only deepened the drama. "Look at him, folks," Hillary sneered, holding up her phone to show Kennedy's doodling hand to her live viewers. "He's literally drawing cartoons while I speak. Does anyone believe this man can handle the Constitution? He probably can't even spell it without an aide feeding him the letters." The room shifted uneasily. Committee members glanced at one another, sensing her attack was veering into personal vendetta. Yet Hillary thrived on the tension, her confidence only swelling as the livestream's view count ticked higher. Kennedy finally glanced up, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He murmured softly, almost to himself, "These fancy phones sure are complicated." The remark was quiet, almost offhand, but it cut through the microphones, rippling across the chamber and out into the live feed. And in that subtle moment, the entire room realized Kennedy wasn't rattled. He was waiting. Clinton only grew bolder. Her laugh rang out, sharp and commanding, as she paced with a practiced swagger. Each gesture was aimed at her phone's camera, feeding the torrent of live comments rushing in from supporters. "Destroy him. Hillary! Oh, send him back to the swamp. Oh, Kentucky Fried Kennedy." "See, folks," she said, voice dripping with contempt. "This is who Louisiana sends to the Senate. A man who can't even operate a smartphone in a modern, tech-driven society. A relic from another time. Someone better suited for a county fair than these hallowed halls of justice. I've negotiated with world leaders, prevented crises, exposed corruption at the highest levels. Taking down this foghorn leghorn impersonator. That's child's play." Her staff worked furiously in the background, whipping up memes in real time. Kennedy's face plastered on cartoon chickens, set to banjo music, primed to spread across the internet like wildfire. "And you know the difference between me and Senator Kennedy?" she asked, pausing with perfect timing. "I've actually read the Constitution, in English. Not in whatever backwoods dialect they mutter down in the bayou." A few chuckles rippled through the chamber, though the laughter sounded forced. Kennedy, unbothered, continued sketching on his yellow pad, adding a lazy little alligator next to his crawfish doodle. Clinton turned to the committee chair with mock formality. "Madam Chair, I'd like to enter into the record my concern over Senator Kennedy's mental fitness. This man answers serious questions with fishing stories and folksy phrases. He doesn't belong in a room shaping the future of America's judiciary." With a flourish, she dropped a thick folder of documents onto the desk. "I've done my research on the so-called esteemed senator from Louisiana. His law career, his swamp tours, his crawfish boils, hardly the resume of a constitutional scholar. Finally, Kennedy lifted his head. His voice was soft, steady, carrying that unmistakable Louisiana drawl. No need for that kind of language. My mama raised me better. But I sure do appreciate you taking such an interest in my work, Madam Secretary. That's downright neighborly of you. A Clinton's smile turned razor sharp. Ah, so the country lawyer speaks at last. Go on, Senator. Share one of your swamp pearls. Maybe tell us what alligator law looks like. Kennedy calmly set down his pen and clasped his hands. Being called worse. Ma'am, but if your performance is finished, maybe we can advance to actual business. Performance? Clinton scoffed, pivoting toward the cameras. Exposing fraud is not a performance, Senator. It's my duty. You're an embarrassment to this body, parading clichés to dupe your voters while the rest of us see straight through the act. Kennedy nodded slowly, as if weighing her words. Strong views, he said. I do respect free speech, but my mama also told me folks in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. What do I know, though? I'm just a simple country lawyer, a Clinton pounced. Exactly. Simple. At least you finally admit it. Leave the complexities to capable minds. The livestream chat exploded with laughing emojis and snide remarks. Clinton's momentum surged. Reporters leaned forward, ready to declare her the victor. But then Kennedy reached into his folder. He pulled out an old pocket watch, winding it once before setting it on the table. Beside it, he placed a slim folder marked in neat handwriting Clinton Ethics Review. The room stilled. With deliberate calm, Kennedy adjusted his glasses and opened the folder, revealing neatly stacked pages. His movements were unhurried, almost ceremonial, as though he were unveiling a family heirloom rather than political ammunition. Now, Madam Secretary, he began, his drawl smooth as the Mississippi current. You've spent a good bit of time this morning explainin' how I'm too simple to handle serious matters. So maybe you can help me understand something that's been puzzlin' me. He squinted down at the first page. Seems I've got here a transcript from one of your television appearances. You told the host, and I'm quotin', that you had ironclad evidence of certain national security threats that demanded immediate action. Kennedy looked up, his expression almost childlike in its innocence. Now, where I come from, ironclad means a sure thing, something you can hang your hat on. But I don't see where that evidence ever showed up. Maybe you can clear that up for us. Clinton straightened in her chair, the predator's grin returning as her instincts kicked in. She leaned forward, tone sharpened with practiced authority. That's correct, Senator, she said firmly, and I stand by it. Unlike some in this chamber, Clinton declared, voice sharp with conviction, I take national security seriously. I've sat in classified briefings that laid out, beyond question, the risks we face as a nation. Oh, classified briefings, Kennedy interrupted softly, his drawl carrying mock wonder. A few chuckles rippled through the gallery. Now, that does sound mighty important. The kind of thing that keeps honest folks up at night. I reckon the evidence must have been real powerful when you saw it in all them closed-door sessions as Secretary of State. Absolutely. Clinton shot back. Posture rigid, her tone clipped. The evidence was clear to anyone with the expertise to grasp the complexities of international intelligence operations. I wouldn't expect someone who thinks complex means finding the right bait for bass fishing to understand such nuance. National security isn't a hobby, Senator. It's a responsibility. Her allies clapped politely, livestream comments lighting up with fire emojis. Go Hillary! Ha! School him! Ha! Facts over folksy! Kennedy scratched his head in fox puzzlement. Extra bait for bass fishin'. That's a good one. You're a funny lady, Madam Secretary. But here's the thing. This ain't funny. He lifted a stack of papers, the rustle echoing under the bright lights. I happen to have the declassified summaries from those very same briefings. A faint flicker crossed Clinton's face before she masked it. These reports are selective at best, she began, but Kennedy raised a hand gently, eyes twinkling. Selective. Well, let's just see what they say. He flipped a page, reading in a steady, unhurried voice. No direct empirical evidence supports the claims of imminent threats as described in public statements. Another page turned. Assessments indicate the information is circumstantial at best, lacking corroboration from multiple sources. He flipped again. We cannot confirm the assertions made in media appearances without additional verification. Kennedy looked up, mild as Sunday morning. No, Madam Secretary, maybe I went to what you called a swap meet law school, but where I come from. No direct evidence, and ironclad evidence, ain't the same thing. That's about like comparing a crawfish boil to one of them fancy gala dinners you go to. Care to explain that little discrepancy? Clinton leaned forward, voice rising. Those reports were drafted to protect sensitive sources and methods. It's not about the words on paper. It's about the larger picture. A picture you clearly don't understand, Senator. Between doodling sea creatures. Kennedy feigned surprise. Well now, let's see how cautious you were with your language. He pulled a tablet from his folder, tapped it, and the hearing room's screens lit up. Even us backwoods fellas have staff who know how these gadgets work. They put together a little reel. Just a few clips of you on TV. Should we take a look? Before Clinton could protest, the video rolled. Clip after clip flashed across the screen. Clinton on morning shows, evening news, primetime interviews. Her voice confident and unyielding. The evidence is overwhelming. I've seen the proof firsthand. It's undeniable. This isn't speculation. It's based on solid intelligence. On screen, a counter ticked upward. 12, 20, 30, 400 until it stopped at 58 appearances. The screen went black. The silence that followed was broken only by the frantic scribbling of reporters and the hum of vibrating phones. Kennedy removed his glasses, polishing them slowly with a handkerchief, a deliberate pause that pressed the weight of the moment deeper into the room. 58 times, Madam Secretary, he drawled. 58 times you told the American people you had ironclad evidence. Yet these official reports say something mighty different. Where I come from, we've got a plain word for that. We call it misleading. And if we're being real honest, we call it lying. Lying. Even us simple folks can spell that one. Clinton's face flushed red, her composure cracking. This is a gross mischaracterization, she sputtered. The context was about protecting national interests, not parsing every phrase for a political gotcha. Kennedy tilted his head, voice mild as ever. Oh, you were protecting something, all right. But maybe not the truth. He reached back into his folder and pulled out another document. Let's see here. This is an email from your own communications director to your chief of staff. Subject line: Security Narrative Strategy. The rustle of paper was loud in the hushed chamber as Kennedy prepared to read. Kennedy adjusted his papers and began reading aloud, his voice even but edged with steel. The boss wants us to keep pushing the threat story hard. She knows the evidence is thin, but says the media cycle is more important than the details right now. Book her on more shows. The more she says it, the more it sticks as fact. The chamber erupted. Reporters hammering keyboards, murmurs swelling, several committee members shifting uncomfortably, eyes avoiding Clinton. That's taken out of context, Clinton snapped, her voice echoing against marble walls. Those were strategy emails, not deception. And they were obtained improperly? Kennedy calmly shuffled another sheet forward. Context, you say? All right. Here's your email to staff the very next day. He read slowly. Great job on the bookings. Remember, confidence sells. If I say we have evidence forcefully enough, no one will question the details. The goal is to shape the narrative, not to litigate every fact. Clinton shot to her feet, her chair screeching across the floor. These are illegally obtained documents. This is a violation of privacy and protocol? Sit down, Madam Secretary. Chairman Graham cut in firmly. These appear to be properly released through Freedom of Information requests. Continue, Senator Kennedy. Kennedy gave a polite nod. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, Madam Secretary, You said earlier I would know constitutional law if it bit me. Maybe so. But I do know something about public trust. He held up another document, this time with charts projected on the screens. These are your financial disclosures. Notice anything? The numbers lit up, her speaking fees and book advances skyrocketing. Modest figures replaced by 7 digits during the same month she saturated the airwaves. Kennedy's drawl was dry as dust. Seems like talkin' about security threats turned out mighty profitable. All them speeches, all those consulting deals, built on claims that don't match the evidence. Whispers rippled behind Clinton as her comms director stared at her phone. Pale livestream comments shifting from "Go Hillary" to "Wait, is this true?" But Kennedy wasn't finished. He slid out one last paper. "No, I'm just a simple Bayer lawyer, but maybe you can explain this." He held up a transcript. "This is a legally recorded call between you and a network producer, date matched to one of your big TV appearances." He began reading producer. "Madam Secretary, we need you strong on the threat story. Can you deliver?" "Clinton, don't worry. I'll say I have evidence. Once it's out there, it becomes the narrative." Producer: "But do you actually have ironclad proof?" Clinton: "Does it matter? The story is what counts. The public needs to hear it this way." Gasps exploded across the chamber. Reporters shouted, cameras flashed. Colleagues on her own side sank low in their seats. Kennedy placed the transcript back into his folder with deliberate care. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Madam Secretary, you've called me a hillbilly, inbred simple. Maybe I am simple. But I'm simple enough to know the difference between truth and spin, between serving the people and serving yourself." He leaned back, eyes steady. "Even my crawfish back home know better than to bite a lure, without checking if there's real bait on the hook." The Clinton, voice cracking, lashed out, "This is a hit job! A partisan ambush! Cherry-picked lies meant to destroy me." Kennedy shook his head slowly. "No, Mom. The only cherry-picking was you. 58 times. Telling the American people you had ironclad proof that never existed. And all the while, your pockets got fuller." The livestream numbers nosedived. The room's mood shifted heavy, like a tide pulling out to sea. Kennedy set his glass down softly, a conductor's baton before the next movement. Then he lifted a thicker folder, its label neat and ominous. "Clinton security breaches." He looked up, voice warm but edged with steel. "Now, Madam Secretary, before we dive into this next part, let me tell y'all a little story about my Uncle Boudreaux's fishing trips." Clinton sneered, trying to recover. "More folksy nonsense." "Exactly what I meant. You distract from real issues with bedtime stories from the bayou." But her words carried no bite. The room was already hooked. Now, Kennedy drawled, lifting a hand as though calming a restless horse. "Let me finish." He leaned in, voice warm but edged with warning. "See, my Uncle Boudreaux had himself a secret fishin' hole on the river. Always full, always button'. But one day, he figured he could make a little side money lettin' outsiders in on it. Thought no harm would come. Didn't take long before the spot was overrun. The fish gone, the whole place ruined. Some secrets, Madam Secretary, ain't meant to be sold. Especially when they ain't yours." The room stilled as Kennedy laid a fresh stack of phone records under the lights, pages crisp and damning. "Which brings us to your communications, Mom. Calls and logs that show a pattern mighty concerning." Clinton's attorney leaned in, whispering furiously, but she waved him off, jaw set, chin high. "Senator, if you're implying impropriety, you'd best have more than fishtails to back it up. This is a Senate hearing, not a diner story hour." Kennedy's smile was slow, almost paternal. "Well, thank you kindly for that reminder. Makes this next part easier to follow." He slid a chart across the table, the dates and times mapped like a spider's web. "You remember talking to me about metadata, data about data. Turns out even a swamp lawyer like me can make sense of these phone records once my staff breaks it down." He put on his readers, eyes scanning. "Here's one classified briefing ends at 2:47 p.m. Sensitive operations overseas. 5 minutes later, at 2:52, your phone dials a reporter's number. 13-minute call. Probably just chit-chat about the weather, huh? The gallery chuckled nervously. Clinton stiffened, knuckles whitening against the table. Another one? Kennedy went on. Briefing wraps at 3:15. 4 minutes later, another reporter. 8-minute call. March, April, May, the list goes on. Sure is a funny habit. Runnin' to the press right after national security sessions. Maybe swappin' gumbo recipes. Those were general calls. Clinton interjected, voice sharp but trembling underneath. Scheduling? Routine outreach. Public officials talk to the press all the time. It's part of the job. General topics. You say? Kennedy flipped to a stack of headlines, reading them aloud with deliberate weight. Sources reveal details on overseas operations. Published 3 hours after your call. Intelligence officials warn of emerging threats. Next morning, right on cue. Classified assessments expose vulnerabilities. 2 hours post-conversation. He paused, brow furrowed in mock confusion. Mighty strange. Every time you called, breaking news about classified material hit the press. Almost like you were leaking. But that can't be, can it? That'd be a federal crime. The air went heavy, broken only by reporters' frantic typing. Kennedy tapped his tablet, sensing it to the room's display. Now, my staff did a fancy analysis I don't pretend to fully understand. But look here. The same phrases from classified briefings show up word for word in those articles. Time-stamped right after your calls. Ain't technology something? The screen glowed yellow where matches lined up. Classified terms side by side with press quotes. Clinton's phone logs sandwiched neatly between. But here's what really stuck in my craw, Kennedy said, voice hardening just a notch. One of those reporters recorded your calls. Protection, they call it. Reporters do that sometimes. A Clinton lurched upright, voice sharp with panic. That's illegal! You can't use that! Kennedy shook his head slowly. Perfectly legal in D.C., ma'am. One-party consent. I'm surprised you didn't know, being the legal expert you claim. Let's play a snippet. The speakers crackled to life. Clinton's voice rang out, clear and unmistakable. Can't quote me directly, but say sources close to the matter. The key is the operation involves specific assets in the region. Reporter, Madam Secretary. This sounds classified. Are you sure, Clinton? I'm handling it. The public needs to hear it. I've been doing this for years. The hearing room gasped. Conversations broke into open whispers. Pens clattered against notepads. Kennedy folded his hands, repeating softly, years. You said you've been doing this for years. Well now, let's see just how many. Kennedy set a thick binder on the desk with a heavy thud. My staff cataloged every unauthorized disclosure during your tenure, he said evenly. Over 200 incidents. And 87% of them. They line up within hours of your post-briefing phone calls. That ain't coincidence, Madam Secretary. That's a pattern clear as the morning sun. On Clinton's phone, her live stream told its own story. Viewers plummeting, comments turning hostile. Is she leaking secrets? This can't be real. Kennedy's tone hardened. But wait, it gets worse. You didn't just leak to U.S. reporters, did you? He laid out another packet. Here we got communications with so-called cultural attachés from a rival nation. Pretty title. But we both know that's code for intelligence operatives. The air thinned as he read aloud excerpts of encrypted messages. Committee priorities, U.S. policy shifts, even hints at classified strategies. All passed along, Kennedy continued. In exchange for favors and funds routed through offshore accounts. He looked up, eyes steady. You thought encrypted apps would hide it. Trouble is, they backed up to a cloud service under warrant. Clinton's lawyer shot to his feet. This is outrageous. We demand a recess. Sit down, Chairman Graham snapped. The evidence is properly obtained. Senator Kennedy, proceed. Kennedy nodded politely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. He turned back to Clinton. Madam Secretary, where I come from, what you've done is called compromising security. Some might even call it flirting with treason. The room buzzed. Kennedy pressed forward, unveiling the climax, a leaked detail from a classified military operation, one that endangered American assets abroad. The specifics matched a botched mission buried deep in classified logs. At the back, 2 plainclothes FBI agents slipped in. Kennedy glanced their way. "Gentlemen, I believe this falls under your jurisdiction. Violations of the Espionage Act and more." The Clinton slumped, her empire of influence collapsing in real time. Kennedy rose slowly, each movement deliberate, almost ceremonial, as if closing a book. The chamber hushed, extra reporters packed in shoulder to shoulder, the air vibrating with anticipation. He lifted the final folder. Slimmer but more damning than the rest. "Madam Secretary." His Louisiana drawl softened, though his eyes sharpened like steel. "I've played the country lawyer long enough. But today ain't about folksy tales. It's about truth." He opened the folder, revealing a joint intelligence report, its pages stamped with seals from multiple agencies. "This assessment identifies you as what we call," he paused, "a compromised asset." The gasp was instant, collective. Kennedy held up a chart, lines crisscrossing like a spider's web, funds from Ukrainian groups, Chinese think tanks, Middle Eastern channels. Millions, Madam Secretary. You weren't just pocketing cash. You were playing both sides, sowing discord. Trading America's security for personal gain. Clinton's face drained of color. Her lawyer tugged at her sleeve, but she stayed frozen, trembling. "Do you know what we call that?" Kennedy asked softly. "Not just betrayal of your oath. Betrayal of this nation itself." He revealed intercepted foreign messages praising her leaks, strategizing around her access, her name marked in code like a prized asset. "The tragedy, Madam Secretary," Kennedy said, voice tightening with restrained emotion, "who'sn't the money? It's the lives put at risk, the allies abandoned, the trust broken." He signaled to the agents. "Gentlemen, this evidence supports violations of the Foreign Agent Registration Act, bribery, espionage. She should be detained." Clinton lurched to her feet, voice cracking. "This is a witch hunt! A frame-up! I demand due process." Kennedy's reply was calm, cutting. "The only process due, ma'am, is justice. And you've dodged it long enough." As agents read her rights, the chamber dissolved into chaos. Reporters shouting, colleagues scrambling to distance themselves, her live stream collapsing under a tidal wave of outrage. Kennedy sat back down quietly, folding his hands, his calm demeanor restored. "Mr. Chairman," he said, "I believe that concludes my questions." Kennedy gathered his papers, gave a respectful nod toward the chairman, and spoke one final time. "Mr. Chairman, I believe that's all. Time now to clean house and restore faith in the institutions that protect our republic." Days later, back home in Louisiana, Kennedy was once again a familiar figure in small-town diners and on the bayou. He sipped coffee with neighbors, cast a line with family, and lived the way he always had, quiet, simple, grounded. His return to ordinary life carried a powerful lesson. That true service doesn't demand fanfare or fortune. It rests on honesty, accountability, and loyalty to country. Values that must always triumph over ego and ambition. In politics, as in life, truth outlasts arrogance. Integrity outshines corruption. And in the end, it's not titles or power that matter, but the courage to do what's right. A reminder to us all. Every choice, whether in leadership or in daily life, is a chance to uphold trust, to strengthen our communities, and to keep faith with the nation we share.